With shattered legs, a broken arm, and numerous cracked bones, the skeleton soldier lay on the floor, grappling with the realization that death was imminent. He had been given the duty of guarding the dungeon, but had failed in his mission to shield his beloved Lady Succubus, who had been killed by bandits. As he lay there, a bandit snapped his neck, severing his head and landing a mortal blow. Fury surged through him, knowing that the bandits had robbed him of his peaceful existence with Lady Succubus. With the last fragment of his strength, he bit a bandit's foot, leaving him bloodied. Enraged, the bandit violently stomped on the skeleton's head, crushing it into pieces and killing the soldier. Waking with a start, he found himself in a coffin on a rainy day. The last memory he had was of his head breaking and his own death. It all seemed strangely familiar. A notification appeared, notifying him that the transmission was complete, though he had no understanding of its meaning. Checking his stats, he was puzzled to discover that he had returned to level 1, despite remembering clearly that he had been level 36. Suddenly, Rubia called to him, informing him of his awakening. Memories flooded back, and he realized that Rubia was the girl he'd encountered 2 decades earlier. The realization dawned that he'd traveled back in time to the moment he'd first awakened 20 years prior. He remembered that bandits had soon attacked, resulting in Rubia's death and his serious injury. Quickly, he grabbed Rubia and hid behind a rock. Men soon arrived, not mere bandits but mercenaries specifically sent to kill Rubia. The inclement weather concealed them, causing the mercenaries to leave. But as they emerged and began to talk, an arrow struck Rubia's shoulder. It was a trap. The mercenaries had feigned departure. A mercenary seized Rubia, intending to assault her before killing her. Seizing the opportunity, the skeleton soldier attacked the mercenary with a rock, assuring Rubia of her safety. But the promise was fleeting, as the mercenary rose and smashed his hammer into the skeleton's head, cracking his skull and ending his life. He awoke once more in the coffin on that rainy day, to Rubia's voice calling him. He was back at the beginning, resurrected again by the necromancer Rubia on the same day and time, but with memories of his previous deaths. He even had a log recording his 2 prior deaths, allowing him to gain either 20 lickability points from necromancers or 40 resistance points to blunt weapons. Choosing the resistance, he prepared for the mercenaries' attack. Arming himself with Rubia's dagger, he lay in wait just as before. He sprang out, slaying the inattentive crossbow mercenary, only to be killed again by the hammer mercenary. His next revival was the same, but with additional experience points. He allocated them to agility for quicker reactions. This time, he targeted the hammer mercenary first, succeeding in killing him but dying from the crossbow mercenary's arrow. The 4th attempt brought further leveling up and more points to agility. He defeated both mercenaries, successfully saving Rubia after 3 attempts and 3 lives. For the first time, he had managed to preserve a life, having been through an intense cycle of death and resurrection, strategizing and adapting to finally achieve success. The skeleton soldier reconciles the events up to this point. Every death transports him back to his original casket, resetting his level to 1, but he retains his skills, and through the Death Memorial Hall, he gains a new skill each time. Uncertain if this ability has limits or if he has a fixed number of lives, he resolves to do his utmost to survive. He learns more about Rubia, the daughter of the Count of Arist, who was slain by a newly ascendant militaristic emperor. She sniffles at the memory, and the skeleton comforts her, reassuring that he will protect her. He recalls that the new emperor will soon wage a 9-year war against the Free States, followed by the awakening of 16 demons. Exiting the cave, they find themselves in snowy mountains. Rubia playfully throws a snowball at the skeleton, urging him to be less serious. They climb towards Ublem, a village on the other side. Rubia nearly falls, but is saved by the agile skeleton, leading her to comment that it's his second rescue. Reaching Ublem, Rubia tells the skeleton to wait outside while she acquires some armor for him. Days pass, and Rubia doesn't return. The skeleton begins to think she has abandoned him. A soldier emerges from the castle, discarding something, Rubia's bruised and dead body. The skeleton overhears men discussing her supposed suicide and their plans to sell her. He kills one of the men, threatening him for answers, learning that the innkeeper had handed Rubia to the guards to be sold to the Gentlemen's Society of Necrons. He steals the man's robe, infiltrates Ublem after dark, and confronts the innkeeper. After learning more about why Rubia was killed, he wounds the innkeeper, who is then strangled to death by a purple snake-like creature emerging from his neck for leaking information. The skeleton decides he needs to know more about the Gentleman's Society of Necron, responsible for these connections. He takes armor from the inn and vows to become stronger to save Rubia next time. Seeking monsters to defeat, he ventures into a dungeon known as the Charnel House of Spirits, suitable for lower levels. In the dungeon known as the Charnel House of Spirits, the skeleton soldier encounters another skeleton. He tells it he does not want to fight his own kind and turns to leave. Suddenly, a notification announces the arrival of the dungeon boss, a massive skeleton wielding a long mace. It brutally smashes the other skeleton to smithereens. Disgusted by the violence against its own kind, the skeleton soldier decides to fight. He deftly dispatches 2 of the boss's skeleton minions and then uses his agility and intelligence to break one leg of the boss. Though off balance, the boss connects with the skeleton soldier, sending him flying. Realizing he has underestimated the boss, the skeleton soldier moves quickly and climbs onto its head. With knowledge of the skeleton's weakness, he drives his sword into the boss's head, defeating it. Notifications reveal he has leveled up 5 times and gained a new quest, to swing his sword 10,000 times for a new sword skill. With no need for food or sleep, he begins to train in the dungeon. Outside the dungeon, 3 explorers, including a knight, a red-haired girl, and a girl with yellow hair named Lena, prepared to enter. The knight tries to impress the girls, promising protection and healing potions. Meanwhile, Lena secretly plans to betray the knight and steal his potions. Inside, the dungeon seems devoid of skeletons, but the party soon finds the remnants of the boss skeleton. Lena readies her dagger for betrayal, but is interrupted by the appearance of an armored figure, who turns out to be the skeleton soldier. Initially silent, he reveals he defeated the boss and tells him to leave. Lena, cunningly, convinces the knight to fight the armored stranger, planning to loot both afterward. Upon revealing he's a skeleton, the knight underestimates and taunts the skeleton soldier but is swiftly disarmed, his arms sliced off. The red-haired girl flees but is stabbed in the back by Lena. Lena introduces herself as a member of the TNT Guild, responsible for assassination, thievery, and intelligence. She pleads for her life and justifies killing the other girl to prevent her escape. Recognizing she's outmatched, Lena surrenders and the skeleton soldier decides to spare her. Lena isn't content with simply leaving and offers her services. Recalling her intelligence skills, the skeleton soldier asks her what she knows about the Gentleman's Society of Necrons. Her knowledge about this mysterious group is poised to become the next key point in the unfolding story. After defeating the knight and the red-haired girl, the skeleton soldier and Lena engage in a conversation regarding the information about the Gentleman's Society of Necrons. Lena agrees to share the information, but she demands to become the skeleton's companion in return. This condition irritates the skeleton, who puts his sword to her neck. However, Lena insists that this is high-level classified information that he couldn't otherwise obtain. Eventually, they agree to the condition, and a notification appears for a new quest called Lena's Story. The skeleton must help Lena become a branch manager within her guild, while being aware of her ability to betray others. Lena promises to aid him in training, but the skeleton picks her up in a chokehold, expressing his distrust as she had killed a human earlier. Lena convinces him that she is more akin to him than to humans, who only use her and don't care about her feelings. She then shares what she knows about the Gentleman's Society of Necrons, an underground organization involved in illegal activities, including drugs, killings, and trafficking. It is backed by powerful people, and Lena needs to rise within her guild to gain more information. The two form a pact. Lena will lure her assassination targets to the cave where the skeleton will kill them, aiding their respective goals. Together, they dispatch numerous targets, with the skeleton soldier leveling up. However, he notices a slowing in his rate of level increase and considers going to another dungeon. Lena brings his attention to the spoils, including books that increase his wisdom points. Among the items are books by the author Kevin Ashton, and Lena offers to bring more books from the village. The skeleton declines but expresses interest in knowing about nearby dungeons. Lena shares information about 4 dungeons within a week's walking distance: the Barren Catacombs, E rank, the Ruined Vault of the Spider, D rank, the Twisted Fog Zone, C rank, and the Sneaky Jungle, C rank. As Lena sleeps in his lap, the skeleton begins to feel drowsy despite his undead nature. A system notification reveals he has spent over 180 nights in the dungeon, increasing his familiarity to 20 points. His skeleton nature seems to surrender to the dungeon, and he falls into a trance, sleepwalking toward the center of the dungeon. In his dream, he finds himself back with Lady Succubus, who reassures him and asks about his dream. Meanwhile, Lena wakes up and searches for the skeleton but can't find him. She heads outside the dungeon and spots a unit of soldiers who have come to investigate the charnel House of Spirits. This once easy dungeon has resulted in the deaths of countless adventurers and civilians in the past 6 months, and the soldiers are determined to uncover the truth. The plot thickens as Lady Succubus, in the skeleton soldier's dream, comments on Lena's intelligence and asks whether he intends to let her die. In the real world, an intruder warning alerts the soldier, who vows to protect Lady Succubus. Simultaneously, Lena races back to the dungeon to alert the skeleton about an incoming enemy unit. Confused and entranced, the skeleton mistakes her for an enemy and attacks. The enemy unit quickly reaches them, launching arrows, and Lena realizes that the skeleton is under some enchantment. Desperately, she tries to wake him. In his trance, he's tormented by the specters of Rubia and Lady Succubus, who accuse him of weakness and failure to protect them. In the physical world, soldiers attack Lena, who fights back with a bomb, binds the skeleton with rope, and retreats further into the cave, where she has more explosives planted. Her plan starts to falter when she's intercepted by knights. The skeleton, meanwhile, drowns in a metaphorical sea of unconsciousness, content that he will see Rubia and Lady Succubus one last time. But Lena's pleading voice reaches him, and he wakes to find her wounded by arrows, shielding him. Together, they rise to face the knights, only to be confronted by a hidden stash of Lena's poison gas bombs. The skeleton carries Lena, cutting through enemies, and escapes the dungeon. Once outside, he sets her down to tend to her wounds, only to be ambushed by the leader of the knight unit, who severs his left arm with a single blow. The master soldier summons the local lord, berates him for misinformation regarding Lena's alleged necromancer powers, and orders him to take Lena to court. The skeleton, although severely wounded, rises again, sword in his right hand, recognizing the unparalleled strength of his opponent, but resolved not to flee. The remaining soldiers emerge from the cave, and the coercion skill is activated, limiting the skeleton's movements. The master, intrigued by the skeleton's resilience despite Lena's unconsciousness, decides to end her life, believing her to be the source of his strength. The skeleton, driven by the memory of past failures and an unbreakable will to protect, lunges at the master but is struck down. As he drifts out of consciousness, gratitude for the chance to meet Rubia again in the afterlife fills him, coupled with a renewed promise to save her next time. When the skeleton soldier comes to consciousness, he's overcome with frantic anxiety as he searches for Rubia. He finds himself in an unfamiliar place, and his heart sinks as he spots Lena asleep on his lap instead of finding Rubia. A system panel suddenly appears, informing him that he is now back to level 1. Still, his stats remain unchanged. An intriguing line on the panel catches his eye. Switching to a designated waypoint, he ponders this, realizing it's his new starting point. He's filled with mixed emotions. Relief at being alive again is overshadowed by disappointment at not meeting Rubia and a lost opportunity to save her life. Then the Death Memorial Hall screen flashes, informing him that this is his 5th life since transmission. The upgraded bonus from My Life for the Necromancer to Necromancer's Lover comes as a surprise, enhancing his connection with Lena through increased lickability points with necromancers. He wakes Lena gently, urgency in his voice as they must leave at once. He recalls the trance-like state he experienced last time around, driven by familiarity with the dungeon. He fears it might happen again. Plus, the soldier's arrival seems imminent. A quick discussion ensues on their next destination. Skeleton soldier proposes the barren catacombs, but Lena suggests the ruined vault of the spider. Her reason? Monsters from the catacombs vanish into thin air, possibly due to an operation by soldiers. This leads to a conversation about the master soldier the skeleton fought, identified by Lena as Mark Leandro von Basham, master of the Order of Blue Lion, one of the 4 greatest swordsmen in the kingdom. They agree to stop at the nearby town of Ublam for supplies, including antidotes and bombs to combat the spider's poison and webs. Lena also wants to clean herself. At Ublam, Lena poses as the skeleton's wife, cleverly smoothing their entry into the town. Once inside, a hostile atmosphere permeates the streets, suspicion glaring in every eye. They find an inn run by a bartender woman without the snake tattoo that the skeleton soldier recalls from his previous visit. After enjoying some rest and a peaceful bath, Lena wakes up refreshed. The skeleton stands guard all night, but observes no suspicious activity. The following morning, they head to a shop for supplies, only to be shockingly rebuffed. Firebombs, antidotes, empty bottles, and tar are all unavailable. Their frustration grows as the shopkeeper refuses to do business with them. Lena's anger is palpable, but the skeleton soldier's caution prevails, and he drags her away. A shadowy figure continues to stalk them, finally revealed as the blacksmith that the skeleton soldier had spotted earlier near the town gate. After capturing him, he guides them to his shop and begins to reveal the town's hidden truths. He explains the scarcity of the items they sought and the city's decline following the previous lord's mysterious death. The introduction of opium has brought widespread addiction, poverty, and desperation. The new lord's rule is marked by ruthlessness, and his guards terrorize the town. Lands and properties have been sold for a pittance for the addictive drug. Dissenters have been sent to the spider cave. The blacksmith's voice cracks as he mentions that his wife was among those sent. The blacksmith beseeched the skeleton soldier to seek vengeance on his behalf, revealing that the armor he had been wearing had been crafted by his own hands. The woman who purchased it from him had declared it a gift for someone special in her life. This revelation caused Skeleton Soldier to recall Rubia, and he reacted with a scream of shock. Seizing the blacksmith by the collar, he demanded an explanation for why the old man hadn't warned Rubia of the dangers that lurked nearby. The blacksmith tried to defend himself, insisting that his advanced age and frailty made it impossible for him to stand against such threats. Skeleton Soldier was about to lift the blacksmith by his shirt, but the old man quickly divulged vital information. The captain of the guards, along with his men, were on their way to the spider cave. With this knowledge, the blacksmith handed them the unquenchable fire of Grasmere, a potent weapon to use against their enemies. Meanwhile, soldiers were hastening chained prisoners, threatening them with the dreaded name of the captain. From a high perch on a tree, Lena and Skeleton gazed down at the procession until they reached a large cave within a mountain, the ruined vault of the spider, larger than any previous dungeon they had encountered. Lena, holding a loaded weapon, offered it to Skeleton Soldier, her excitement palpable. In a flashback, she had eagerly questioned the blacksmith about the rare fire of Grasmere. With only a few baubles left in the blacksmith city of Rasmere, the blacksmith confirmed her statement, disclosing the city's secret. He had managed to make just one bottle of the magical fire. Teaching them to load it into a gun, he warned Skeleton to handle it with caution. The magical fire, if not enclosed within a container imbued with cold magic, would burn for decades. It was a powerful tool used in place of smelting to refine precious metals. He even provided a flame-resistant substance for protection against the heat of the flame. Though he had intended to use the fire for his life's grandest work, the old man confessed that seeing evildoers destroyed would be satisfying compensation. At that moment, Skeleton directed Lena to wield the weapon, urging her to use it sparingly. As they ventured into the cave, their footsteps echoed in an unsettling silence. They knew a large group had entered before them, but tracking footprints proved difficult. Inside, they were awestruck by the cave's immense size compared to the previous ones they had explored. Lena halted Skeleton to ask about his relationship with Rubia. Denying any connection beyond mutual benefit, Skeleton ended the conversation by confessing his failure to protect her. Skeleton Soldier then found a blocked path, and Lena handed him a pendant of significance, asking him to hold on to it temporarily. All the while, spiders were gathering above them, weaving webs. An object dropped on Skeleton's head, causing him to look up at a giant attacking spider. With a swing of his sword, he inflicted damage but knew he needed to sever its web. The beady-eyed creature fell, and Skeleton's sword pierced through its head, causing green goo to spill out. As he rested momentarily, the screeching of more spiders echoed behind him. 2 giant growling spiders clung to the ceiling, spinning webs, and hanging Lena upside down. Skeleton's sword flung at them, sending them crashing to the ground and spilling green fluid everywhere. While battling the spiders, Skeleton saw Lena's grip slipping from the thread she dangled from. Furiously, he fought, cursing the spiders as one sprayed webbing around his legs, immobilizing him. Struggling, he cut the web, but a spider yanked his sword away. Another began shooting webs at him, and Skeleton wriggled in desperation, pulling free as the spiders scampered closer. One raised a leg to crush him, but suddenly flames erupted throughout the cave. Lena, having freed herself and ignited the spiders, impressed herself with the weapon's power. Skeleton, now understanding the firebomb's value, noticed the spiders retreating from the flames. Lena retrieved his sword and cut his web binding, freeing him. Once liberated, Skeleton set the remaining spiders ablaze, feeling his strength increase more rapidly. Lena joked about being his wife, and he acknowledged owing her for saving his life. However, Lena suddenly fell unconscious, poisoned by a green mark on her neck. Confused and attacked by the Spider Queen, Skeleton was inadvertently rescued by a group led by a young man with slick back hair and a snake tattoo, the captain of the guards. Skeleton managed to hide, unnoticed by the captain, and spotted the prisoners being rushed by the guards. Reminiscing about Rubia, Skeleton recalled how the captain had ordered her kidnap and sale as a slave to the Gentlemen's Society of Nikran. He remembered her smile as the captain laughed cruelly. The soldiers had the spiders wrap each prisoner in webs, killing them slowly. They debated the necessity of this method, but a new soldier was told to obey the captain's orders and keep silent. Thus, the macabre task continued, all under the watchful eyes of Skeleton Soldier, who was filled with both determination and sorrow. Skeleton Soldier moved stealthily, creeping up behind a new soldier and positioning his sword against the man's throat. Trembling with fear, the soldier calls out to his captain, who is taken aback to find himself at the mercy of Skeleton. As Skeleton demands an antidote, the captain inquires if he might let them live in return. Skeleton's reply is chilling. He'll kill the captain swiftly but spare his men. The captain, baffled, laughs at Skeleton's audacity, suspecting that he might be a lunatic. The discussion turns to Rubia, a young woman who went to Hublum to purchase armor and never returned, having been murdered on the captain's command. The armor now adorns Skeleton, who accuses the captain of the deed. The captain's response is a scornful laugh, dismissing the vengeance quest and belittling the memory of ordinary women. Furious, Skeleton swiftly ends the life of the guard he had been holding hostage. The captain, unfazed, asks Skeleton if he likes eggs and hurls the Spider Queen's eggs at him, leaving him to face her wrath. The captain smirks as Skeleton is attacked, his armor pierced by one of her spiked arms. Commenting on the humor of the situation, the captain explains that the Spider Queen was a chimera, created and abandoned by magicians, but fiercely protective of her offspring. She continues her relentless attack on Skeleton, ripping and slashing while the captain orders his soldiers to leave, confident that they won't have to feed the spider that day. However, his confidence is shattered when the cave erupts in flames, and the Spider Queen's screeching fills the air. A look of genuine fear crosses the captain's face as Skeleton emerges from the flames, pouring water over his head and revealing his non-human nature. Skeleton, his face covered by armor, aims a gun that shoots flames at the captain and his soldiers. Amidst the chaos, the cave becomes a fiery inferno, and the captain finds himself cornered, begging for mercy. Skeleton shows none, and the captain meets a fiery end, burned alive in his desire for retribution for Rubia's death. With Lena unconscious and his bones beginning to melt, Skeleton Soldier notices his assimilation rate decreasing. Waking to find Lena asleep on his lap, he's confused about the moment of his death, as he was cautious with the fire-resistant potion. Back in Oblam, Lena attempts to convince a shopkeeper to sell her firebombs. When refused, Skeleton Soldier intervenes, leading them back to the blacksmith's shop. There, the blacksmith hands over the fire of Grasmere and a gun to use it, along with heat-resistant liquid. Testing the gun on the blacksmith himself, Skeleton Soldier accuses the old man of trying to kill them. The blacksmith retorts, identifying Skeleton as a non-human monster. Lena, in frustration, suggests killing the blacksmith, but they leave instead, taking a sword that the blacksmith had been forging for years. Once more at the ruined vault of the spider, Lena and Skeleton prepared to face the dangers within, wary of the fire's potency and the limitations of the heat-resistant powder. The adventure continues, fraught with peril and driven by revenge, as they move forward in a world filled with uncertainties and treacherous paths. Upon entering the cave, Skeleton Soldier swiftly knocks Lena unconscious, placing her in a safe corner. He sternly reminds himself that she died once because of him, but he won't let it happen again. Armed with his sword and vowing to make quick work of it, he begins to burn all the attacking spiders with the fire of Grasmere, confident that the weapon is sufficient but aware that caution is needed. Suddenly, the captain and a few soldiers approach him, seemingly fearful since he had slain the spiders alone. The captain deceptively offers to guide him out of the confusing dungeon, introducing his group as town guards. Slyly he asks Skeleton if he likes eggs, hiding a spider egg behind his back. Skeleton's response is swift and deadly. He slices through the captain's chest with his sword, causing the concealed eggs to shatter on the ground. Stunned, the captain demands to know his identity, but Skeleton coldly states that he only has a promise of painful death to keep. Fear spreads among the captain's group, but they follow orders to attack Skeleton, who meets them with a fiery onslaught. He stops after a moment, remembering not to overuse the weapon lest he melt like before. He resolves to keep his distance and burn the place down. Despite injuries, the captain lunges at Skeleton, destroying his flame gun and declaring Skeleton's error in destroying the eggs. He threatens Skeleton with the Spider Queen's wrath, holding her last egg hostage and ordering her to kill Skeleton. The ensuing battle is fierce. Skeleton struggles against the stronger, furious Spider Queen, barely fending off her attacks. Knocked to the ground, he trips on a rock and looks desperately for a solution, spying fire near his smashed weapon. Mocked by the captain, Skeleton infuses his sword with the flame of Grasmere, transforming it into a blazing weapon. He drives the Spider Queen away, cutting her legs and finally knocking her out, splashing green goo everywhere. The shocked captain sees an opportunity to strike Skeleton from behind, but is met with a slashing counterattack. Desperation takes over as he calls futilely for his dead guards and sizzling spiders to aid him. An attempt to extinguish the flames on his arm only spreads the fire. Stumbling back, burning and terrified, the captain reaches the edge of a cliff. Despite Skeleton's warnings, he slips and falls to a charred, fiery death. Skeleton watches the burning body, deeming it a pathetic end. With regret, he tosses the flaming sword down the cliff, considering it too dangerous to keep. Suddenly, the Spider Queen awakens, lunging at Skeleton. To his surprise, she simply retrieves her last egg, expressing happiness before collapsing dead. Skeleton realizes her actions were driven by maternal instinct to protect her eggs, a realization that comes to him as he prepares to return to Lena. The adventure continues, laden with lessons, risks, and the uncertainty of what lies ahead. Skeleton Soldier, having defeated the Web Slinger, is victorious in his latest stage. His warrior points have shot up by 400%, and he's managed to clear the dungeon with less than 10% of his health remaining. He's also rewarded with a new quest titled The Adventurer on the Edge of the Border and a new skill called Dash that boosts his speed by 300% for 5 minutes and can be used 3 times a day. Emerging from the cave into daylight, Skeleton Soldier is met by Lena's fury. She's angry and feels betrayed that he entered the cave without her, believing he doesn't trust her. He hands her a sack he was carrying, but she is adamant that it won't fix things. However, when she glimpses a sparkling gold coin inside, she changes her mind. Determined to prove herself, she vows to train harder so he won't leave her behind again. Unsure of their next destination, Lena suggests returning to her guild's regional office. She guides him to the branch office of her guild, and later they reach an orphanage. The children, including Rena's sister, greet them warmly, and Rena introduces No Name as the knight who assisted her. The headmaster of the orphanage, a young, well-dressed man, welcomes them and Rena, and he catch up. No Name is then introduced, and the headmaster, identifying himself as Lime, suggests that No Name remove his armor. No Name declines, and Lime reassures him that what's beneath the armor is not a concern. Suddenly, a child's scream interrupts their conversation, and Lime mentions unwelcome guests on the premises, promising to continue their talk later. In the courtyard, 2 armed men and a woman are attempting to forcibly take a child, accusing her of fleeing. They claim to run a nearby village's orphanage and say the child was chosen to be adopted by a court supporter. Lime intervenes, offering to discuss the matter if they release the child. He points out that she fled due to abuse, but the woman interrupts, proposing a deal to profit from the children. Lime refuses, calling them pigs for using children as puppets, and the woman orders an attack. Though No Name is worried, Rena assures him all is well, and the men need help, not them. The woman's grin turns to shock as her henchmen are engulfed by Lime, who reveals himself to be made of slime. He consumes the terrified woman as No Name, and a satisfied Rena watch. Lime then properly introduces himself as Slime, the TNT Guild's Eastern Branch office manager, and a fellow non-human. No Name, surprised to see an intelligent Slime, asks how Lime will handle the aftermath. Lime assures him it's no problem, much to No Name's discomfort and Rena's delight. Inside, Slime explains his interest in running an orphanage and offers to take a skeleton form, which No Name declines. Slime's excellent appraisal skills are revealed, and he offers to appraise anything for No Name, who gives him a ruby. As Slime examines the jewel, No Name realizes Rena's trust in him comes from growing up with Slime. The ruby's value and use are revealed, and No Name's assimilation rate drops, causing him to tremble. He dismisses Slime's concern and asks for a spare sword. Grateful for Rena's safety, Slime offers to repair No Name's armor and provide room for the night. That night, No Name contemplates a class change while looking at the ruby. Rena enters, and they discuss her sister and future plans. She gives No Name her precious golden pendant, found with her when abandoned at the orphanage, for the day he completes his quest. Sweetly she asks him to live with her, and they share a silent, meaningful stare. The following day, No Name inspects his newly repaired armor and admires his fresh sword, with Slime by his side. Rina enters the room, shyly averting her eyes. Later, Slime inquires about No Name's next destination and, sensing his uncertainty, suggests that he join the TNT Guild. He explains that Rina's trainee status limits her access to information within the guild, but No Name would enjoy full benefits as an official member under Slime's endorsement. Though Slime thinks highly of him, No Name declines, preferring not to be tied to a group, much to Slime's dismay. No Name plans to continue relying on Rina for information, causing her to blush. He then questions Slime about the requirements for Rina to become an official member. Slime explains that she can either fulfill guild requests or donate gold. No Name offers a bag of gold from the spider's vault, which Slime confirms is sufficient. A blue status window appears, updating No Name's progress in Rina's story, and notifying him that his assimilation rate has dropped to 88.56%. While Slime reads guild bylaws to Rina, No Name ponders the meaning of the assimilation rate. The conversation turns to Amber, a maritime port and city of engineers, which No Name recalls will soon be the starting point of a 9-year war initiated by Crown Prince Alton Clemens II. The city's anarcho-syndicalist nature will annoy the Crown, making it the Empire's first target. No Name subtly questions if Amber's position as a significant obstacle in a potential war would be considered a grave threat. Slime agrees but assures that preparations are in place, refusing to elaborate further. As Slime congratulates Rina on her promotion, No Name inquires about the requirements for her to become branch manager. Slime is amused but focuses on Rina's immediate promotion, explaining that difficult requests could expedite her next advancement. A blue option window appears, asking No Name to accept or decline a quest. In a packed arena, a host announces the Harris Tournament, introducing the first contestants, including No Name. The fight begins with the dismantler lunging at No Name's head with a great hammer. Days earlier, Slime had explained that a household from Janae sought a mercenary to represent them in the tournament. They had earned their title through wealth, but lacked a trained knight. The event's sponsor, the Lord of Harris from the Ray family, pressured participation, so they sought to hire a mercenary. No Name would be paid for each win until the 8th round. Accepting the request, No Name and Rina hitch a wagon ride, and No Name contemplates the Lord of Harris, Rubia's uncle, pondering if he should kill him. Rina questions No Name about his relationship with Rubia and his perception of her. He dismisses any connection and struggles to describe her, admitting she was likely attractive. When Rina asks if he would have answered Rubia differently in the orphanage, No Name maintains that his response would be the same, citing a task he must complete, leaving Rina disappointed. The conversation between No Name and Rina abruptly halts as they draw near the city gates. A restless crowd is forming a line, clearly excited, and the pair quickly approaches a stand dedicated to enlisting participants for the tournament. They're there to enlist No Name as a knight for the esteemed house of Janai. When the official enlister asks for a name, No Name pauses, lost in thought, appearing perplexed. Rina, recognizing his hesitation, attempts to cover for him in front of the suspicious enlister. At that moment, the skeleton introduces himself as Suraj Agon, a name unfamiliar to those present. No Name whispers to Rina that Shirajigan is a made-up name and inwardly recalls that he had taken the name from two feared figures known as the Disruptor Suri and the Savage Ox Jagan. These were two of the 16 demon lords, beings foretold to descend upon mankind after the cataclysmic 9 Years' War. Borrowing these names, he believes, shouldn't cause any trouble. Having once been a low-ranking skeleton soldier in the dreaded demon army, No Name had never personally seen any of the demon lords. Controlled by the wicked necromancer, his existence had been a living nightmare, a state from which he was rescued by the mistress succubus Rina. Now she pulls him from his dark memories, probing for his real name. She confesses that before she hadn't considered his name important, thinking he was the last of the walking skeletons. No Name replies with uncertainty, confessing that he doesn't know his own name, leading Rina to kindly offer to brainstorm names for him. Their conversation is interrupted when a loud voice announces that the tournament will commence the following day, and that the participants will enjoy lodgings and food in the castle. They will also have the freedom to move around the castle grounds between matches. Recognizing this castle as Rubia's home, No Name inquires about the castle library's location. Once in the library, the librarian warmly commends No Name's passion for learning and his warrior spirit. He asks her if she has any books written by Kevin Ashton. The librarian, unable to recognize the author, begins to scour the shelves. As No Name notes the disarray of the place, a book suddenly lands by his feet. Looking up, he sees an ethereal image of Rubia, absorbed in reading atop some stairs. This haunting vision vanishes when the librarian hands him Crevice of Time by Kevin Ashton. She then retrieves the fallen book, lamenting the departure of the person who had once cherished it. No Name's curiosity about the matter visibly unnerves her, and she quickly excuses herself, leaving him alone in the room. Left to himself, No Name opens Crevice of Time and reads it voraciously. When Rina finds him later, he has been informed by a blue window that his wisdom has been augmented by 10, and he now possesses the ability to sense other skeletons. Upon glancing at Rina, another window appears, detailing her name, profession, level, stats, and a likability rating of 40. No Name engages in sword practice, but realizes his swordsmanship doesn't surpass level 5. He becomes contemplative about his insight bonus. Soon Rina approaches, informing him that the tournament is on the verge of beginning. Fireworks illuminate the sky, signaling the onset of the Harris tournament. The host calls for a spirited round of applause as the Grand Lord Ray enters the arena. Arena and No Name, observing from a distance, engage in a discussion about whether the tournament's prize is truly worth the competitor's effort. Andrina emphasizes the genuine reward, the prestige and increased recognition the knights and nobles stand to gain. This is particularly vital for oathless knights who aspire to catch the eye of noble houses. As No Name prepares for his upcoming match, he intends to avoid drawing excessive attention. The host elaborates on the round's rules, while No Name ponders the strategic complexity of defeating his adversary, Jacob Isaac. The fight kicks off, and No Name, relying on his superior agility, dodges Jacob's ferocious attack, breaking his hammer in the process. He generously offers a surrender option, only to be met by Jacob's enraged assault. With no other alternative, the skeleton evades the punch and quickly incapacitates Jacob with the pommel of his sword. The crowd's stunned silence gives way to applause as the judge proclaims No Name the victor, a result that surprises him but fills Rina with joy and pride. The stats of level 17 fighter Colin Harrod are displayed in an insight window as he thrusts and dodges with a spear, managing to knock his opponents down. Later, it showcases the stats of Jang Phillip, a level 29 warrior, who tries to attack No Name with chains, only to have No Name catch them with his sword and pull him closer, incapacitating him. The crowd erupts in cheers. The skeleton, reflecting on the action, praises the convenience of the insight skill, enabling him to gauge his opponent's strength and respond effectively. He also wonders about Kevin Ashton, but quickly notices Rina holding off 3 men who wish to see him. These men introduce themselves as representatives of a merchant group, a fiefdom, and a noble family. They compete to offer No Name a better payment to work as their guard. Regardless of the salary, No Name refuses, pledging loyalty to the House of Jannah. As they persist, a drunken swordsman interrupts, demanding quiet and asking the guards to escort the men away. Rina then informs a shocked No Name that the drunk is his next opponent, causing No Name to ponder how a drunkard got into the quarterfinals. In the arena, the host introduces No Name as Sirajagan and his opponent as Tabled Reynolds. Reynolds asks for a restroom, but is denied since the fight is about to begin. No Name activates Insight to check his stats, but is shocked to find the window completely blank, puzzled when he gets the same result on trying again. The fight begins, and No Name, deciding to forego Insight, lunges at Tabled, who dodges while lamenting his need to pee. He promises to end the fight quickly and mentions Imperial Fencing first chapter before attacking. No Name barely blocks the attack and earns a compliment from Tabled before the swordsman unleashes another attack. No Name grimly realizes why Insight doesn't work on him. Tabled has a higher level. The pair continued to duel, No Name blocking incoming attacks, to Tabled's delight. Tabled parries No Name's sword and lunges at the gap in his armor. However, No Name closes the gap in time, somersaulting to safety. Tabled notes his strike didn't succeed. No Name reflects on being saved due to the blade passing through his ribs, fatal for a human, but not for a skeleton. No Name asks Tabled about Imperial fencing, learning that Tabled used to be an Imperial Knight. Tabled taunts No Name, saying he's not skilled enough to be an Imperial Knight and presses his attack, challenging No Name to strike. No Name thinks Tabled must be weaker than Baitian, a feared opponent he may have to face. Seizing an opportunity, No Name hacks Tabled from the side, cutting him in the arm before Tabled dodges the strike. The crowd gasps, and a wounded Tabled stands at attention. The battle continues with No Name and Tabled exchanging blows. Tabled reveals that blade skills are the special requirement for becoming an Imperial Knight and blocks No Name's attack before driving his sword to the ground. He launches a surprising curved attack, sending No Name flying backward, then promising a swift strike. No Name raises his sword, but the curved attack pierces his neck and sends him falling. As Tabled approaches the host to claim victory, he's startled to see No Name rising and resuming the fight. The skeleton states he doesn't plan to become an Imperial Knight, but must defeat Tabled to pursue Marcus Vatian. Tabled, furious at hearing Vatian's name, attacks in rage. During the fierce duel, Tabled drops his sword and forfeits the match. No Name is proclaimed victor, and Tabled gloomily reveals that the lack of blade skills prevented him from becoming a knight. Later, at a banquet for the semi-finalists, No Name and the Oathless Knight keep their helmets on and refrain from eating. No Name checks the stats of the remaining contenders, noticing that Tabled was the strongest. Lord Ray, a figure of authority and respect, lauds a mysterious warrior known only as No Name for his exceptional skill. This admiration is so profound that he offers No Name the chance to serve under him and prove his true worth. The other semi-finalists are taken aback by this praise, but Lord Ray asserts his belief that deserving individuals should fill positions of honor, and he is frustrated by those without talent occupying them. No Name harbors a deep desire to kill Lord Ray for the wrongs he inflicted upon Rubia and her father, yet he refrains, fully aware that any attempt on the Lord's life would lead to his immediate execution by the guards. Lord Ray, noticing No Name's silence and possibly sensing his conflict, provides him with time to consider the offer. However, he warns that he may regret not accepting it immediately, as Lord Ray has no interest in associating with losers. A tense moment follows as Lord Ray asks No Name to remove his helmet. Although displeased by the refusal, he chooses to accept it, acknowledging No Name's ability. He then turns to the Oathless Knight, recognizing him as Creston the Hellraiser, who is to be No Name's next opponent. The room is filled with excitement as Lord Ray anticipates the forthcoming battle, promising that he will uncover the true faces of the fighters regardless of the outcome. With a snap of his fingers, he summons 6 alluring women to entertain his guests. While the other 2 semi-finalists revel in the festivities, Creston leaves the room abruptly, followed by No Name. Outside, No Name confronts Creston, puzzled by his sudden departure. Creston dismisses the idea of Imperial Knightage in Janai, questioning whether No Name has bribed his way into this position. In response, No Name pointedly asks Creston why he always wears a helmet, leading to a heated exchange. Creston unsheathes his sword, promising to shatter No Name's insolence, but sheathes it again, leaving the issue unresolved. The next day, as the crowd gathers for the semifinals, a woman named Irina bets a bag of gold on No Name, expressing her surprise when she finds him nearby. Encouraging him to win, the stage is set for the fight. With the announcer's presentation of Sarajagan and Creston the Hellraiser, No Name begins to analyze his strategy while Creston warns that holding back will lead to death. As the fight commences, Creston attempts a decisive blow with his great sword, only to be dodged by No Name, who counterstrikes on the Hellraiser's armor. The fight intensifies as No Name plans to use his superior agility, dodging Creston's resilient strikes. In a cunning move, Creston strikes the arena, creating a dust cloud, and sneaks behind No Name, delivering a powerful blow. The skeleton deflects it, receiving praise from Creston, but a warning that his fall is imminent. Knowing that dodging won't work forever, No Name adopts a daring approach, lunging at Creston and delivering 2 quick blows. The crowd watches in shock as Creston's armor shatters and the helmet flies off, revealing the knight to be a woman. The revelation sends shockwaves through the crowd and catches Lord Ray's attention. As No Name and the now-named Christina Brewer face each other in the arena, one of Lord Ray's bodyguards insists she state her real name to be acknowledged as a valid contestant. Despite a soldier's objections to a woman competing, Lord Ray permits it, assuming No Name has no objections. The fight continues amidst the crowd's outrage at Christina's deception and potential lost bets. The battle becomes personal, with Christina demanding that No Name stop holding back. She recalls her traumatic past and the harsh training from her father, who resented her for being a woman. The fight takes a surprising turn when Christina, in a desperate lunge, trips and falls. While on the ground, the crowd's mockery triggers a memory of her father's threats, adding to her suffering. No Name's attempt to offer caution is met with a surprising strike, sending him flying. Christina, eyes glowing red and exhaling steam, stands ready in a battle stance, and a blue window appears to inform No Name that she has activated the Berserk skill. Now a berserker with much enhanced abilities, Christina's rage boils over as she delivers a powerful blow that shatters part of the arena. No Name skillfully evades this attack, but is left pondering the reason behind this sudden transformation. The crowd, initially stunned, sees her berserker mode as a change of fortune and starts to cheer for Christina. No Name, keenly observing her newfound strength and speed, is taken off guard when she lunges at him and sends him flying across the arena. The crowd erupts in joy, Lord Ray watches intently, and Reno looks on with concern. Understanding that Christina, despite being a lower level, has become a formidable opponent, No Name decides he must act quickly. Using his superior speed, he knocks her back and starts to circle her. The berserker, not to be outdone, swings her sword wildly in a wide circle, but No Name jumps clear and lands a blow that sends her reeling. Christina's fierce resolve keeps her standing, roaring in defiance. As No Name wonders what kind of monster she has become, a blue window informs him that his speed ability has run out and needs recharging. He also notices that the Berserk ability is draining Christina's energy, and he sees an opportunity. He prepares to strike, but is stopped in his tracks as Christina's tears catch his eye. She pleads for a chance to continue fighting, a plea that reminds him of his first death with Rena. Urged to finish the fight, No Name approaches Christina, blade in hand. A sudden flash stuns the onlookers, and the host announces Christina's unexpected victory over her prone opponent. Rena rushes to the fallen No Name, distressed and fearful of losing him, only to be startled when he rises, completely fine but aching. Flustered, she ushers him away, while Christina looks on from the arena. In the forest, No Name hints at losing on purpose, and Reno mourns the money she lost betting on him. They reflect on their mission as Christina approaches, challenging No Name again and suspecting that he let her win. He dismisses the idea, insisting that he was just reckless and lost fairly. He encourages her to go on and win the tournament and gives some ironic advice on not wearing a helmet. Returning to the TNT orphanage, Slime pays them their commission for completing the request. The branch manager inquires about No Name's choice of the name Suredge Gone, and the duo focuses on their next adventure. For the next 3 months, No Name and Rena focus on dungeons, avoiding the North Alpine region, but exploring the mountains to the south of the Empire. Their adventures take them through perilous landscapes like the withering burn maze of poisonous branches, battling centaurs in the blood-stained equestrian quota, and fleeing from ghouls in the den of the dead. They continue to earn loot, upgrade No Name's armor, and deepen their partnership. As No Name muses about their last dungeon, Rena's request to accompany her catches him by surprise. Slime explains that Rena needs another letter of recommendation to become a branch manager and must pass a test in the Eastern Division, a location secret to outsiders. No Name encourages her to go, stating he'll clear a dungeon in her absence. Reno leaves, furious, while the skeleton and branch manager discuss the Goblin Dungeon, with the latter suggesting a connection to the mysterious Necron Society. In the dead of night, a hooded man runs desperately through a dense forest. The thud of hooves and the whizzing of crossbow bolts tell of his pursuers closing in. Exhausted, he stumbles and falls to his knees, only to rise and sprint away once more, pleading for someone to rescue him. Meanwhile, at the TNT regional branch, Slime shares some intriguing information with No Name. He reveals that those who enter the Goblin Dungeon have a distinctive neck tattoo, and he's been discovering monsters from the Necron Society taking over dungeons. The branch manager also informs No Name about the dungeon being a mine containing rare bloodstones, which are used for magic. He assures him that some of these stones will be part of his compensation for this particular quest, and though the reward will be substantial, the quest itself might be perilous. With the task of normalizing the dungeon ahead, No Name accepts the quest without hesitation. Some time later, he finds himself standing in the middle of the forest, staring at a map and realizing he's lost. His wandering thoughts are interrupted by nearby howls, leading him to a white pup ensnared in a bear trap. Compassionately, he examines the wounded animal and frees it, intending to continue on his path. But the pup has other ideas. It stands guard before No Name, barking furiously. Confused by this behavior and trying to shoo the pup away, No Name proceeds past it, only for the ground to give way beneath him. Falling, he narrowly avoids a gruesome death by thrusting his sword into the cave wall, halting his descent just above a metal spike-lined bottom. Examining his surroundings, No Name notices an adult white wolf impaled on the spikes in the distance. The realization dawns that it must be the pup's mother, and the pup was trying to warn him of the trap. Despite having escaped death, he now faces another problem. He's trapped in the pit with no means of escape, the white pup barking from above as the sun sets. Suddenly, voices from above signal a new danger. Hunters are attempting to catch the wolf pup. Analyzing his options, No Name contemplates sating the wolf but decides to play dead for the moment. A bald man and his associate discuss selling No Name's gear and even consider setting fire to the pit to ensure he's dead. The bald man proceeds to ignite the flames, forcing No Name to rely on his flame resistance skill to endure the heat. As the fire dies out, the associate descends on a ladder to retrieve the armor, poking at No Name and fearing he might still be alive. A blue window appears, indicating the creation of a pseudo-death skill, allowing No Name to continue his ruse. From above, the bald man impatiently urges his associate to hurry and muses about heading to the pub when they are interrupted by two soldiers. One soldier reminds the terrified man of the consequences of hunting in the area. Meanwhile, at the bottom of the pit, the associate removes No Name's helmet and is horrified at the sight of his skull. The sudden scream is followed by the bald man being thrown into the pit, landing atop No Name. Seizing the opportunity, No Name climbs the ladder as the soldiers search for loot. Noticing a snake tattoo on one soldier's neck, he identifies them as members of the Necron Society. Preparing to leave, the soldiers are startled when No Name greets them, causing them to turn around and face the unexpected presence. Shocked to see him emerge from the pit, they draw their weapons and question his intent. No Name calmly explains his mission in the dungeon and readies his sword. The lead soldier, noticing his cape, inquires if he's Duranim, the new supervisor sent from the organization. With a sigh of relief, he sheaths his blade, stating that No Name was expected, turning the confrontation into an unexpected alliance. Opting to play along, No Name confirms that he is indeed the supervisor the lead soldier was expecting. The soldier quickly bows, instructing his subordinates to follow suit, and explains that he was informed the supervisor would be wearing a red cape. Apologizing for the confusion, he looks to No Name, who graciously accepts the apology and instructs them to lead him to the dungeon. As they make their way, the lead soldier enlightens No Name about the dungeon's mine, describing its profitability. His subordinate accidentally lets slip something about the captain's inappropriate behavior with the goblins, causing distress. Sensing an opportunity to learn more, No Name inquires about any peculiarities or unique happenings in the mine. The soldiers share that a strange, small-sized man has been lurking around, managing to evade capture. What's more, this mysterious figure seems to know things about the dungeon that even they aren't aware of, and has even succeeded in freeing some slaves before being stopped. This raises suspicions of a spy within their ranks. Finally, they reach the dungeon, and No Name's eyes are drawn to the massive mining operation below. Enslaved goblins toil under the harsh gaze of whip-wielding overseers. One exhausted goblin collapses, dropping his minerals, inciting a merciless whipping from an enraged overseer, who then orders others to dispose of the badly beaten creature. Observing this grim scene, No Name recalls what his mistress once told him about goblins. They are known as a cowardly species, skilled in reading lands and discovering materials. They avoid humans by hiding in the mountains, and the more advanced goblins have even become pillars for the 16 demon kings. Considering their treatment, No Name understands why they would despise humans so fiercely. His thoughts are interrupted as he passes a pile of dead goblins, and a blue window pops up, describing the dungeon's level and size. With the information absorbed, No Name becomes aware of the strange man trailing them from a distance. Deeper into the dungeon, the lead soldier introduces No Name as the new supervisor to his captain. The captain warmly greets him, reporting on the mining progress and requesting that No Name put in a good word with the higher-ups. Complimenting their work, No Name carefully considers how to fulfill his ominous quest to kill everyone in the dungeon. But a sudden request from the captain to remove his helmet puts him on edge. Quick to think, he excuses himself, claiming he can't remove the helmet due to recent burns, and even brushes off a request for identification by saying he left it at home. He starts to believe he's narrowly escaped discovery, but then the captain requests to see the snake tattoo that would prove his allegiance to the Necron Society. The jig is up, and as the captain realizes the truth, No Name reaches for his blade. The captain signals his men to aim their crossbows, threatening to torture No Name for more information. Analyzing his dire situation, outnumbered and with no other options, No Name activates his speed skill and springs into combat. Cutting through the soldiers, he ignores the captain's frantic orders to fire crossbows. The officer's joy at hitting their target is fleeting, as No Name continues his relentless attack, unharmed, until he finally strikes down the captain. A blue window informs No Name that he's earned the reward of Conqueror of the Thorny Maze, which decreasing soldiers who fall to their knees, begging for mercy. Assuring them that he never intended to kill them, No Name retrieves an ID from the dead captain's corpse. Now with identification in hand, he instructs the soldiers to guide him to where the goblins are, moving closer to fulfilling his mysterious quest. As they journeyed together, the soul soldiers chatted with the skeleton, informing him about another group of 10 soldiers inside the tunnel. They casually mentioned the dead goblins scattered around, taking credit for the gruesome scene. Soon, they arrived at a tunnel where the second group of soldiers was. These soldiers were cruelly shooting crossbow bolts at a restrained goblin, all for their amusement. The skeleton, known as No Name, recognized this creature as a hobgoblin, far smarter and more powerful than ordinary goblins. What's more, hobgoblins have healing abilities, earning them the name Royal Goblins. The torturing of the hobgoblin made the other goblins cry out, but they were quickly silenced by the group leader. Upon spotting the newcomers, the group leader questioned No Name and the soldiers about why they were there. No Name stepped forward, introducing himself as the supervisor. When the leader tried to remove No Name's helmet, he was stopped by a firm grip on his forearm and a stern command not to touch him. Shocked, the leader demanded an explanation, while a strange, small man continued to watch from afar. The situation escalated quickly. No Name twisted the leader's arm, pretended to apologize, then suddenly pulled out a dagger and stabbed it through the armor's eye slit. As No Name fell to his knees, the leader commanded his soldiers to explain themselves, but they were paralyzed with fear when No Name pulled the dagger free. Calling the leader despicable, he stabbed him in the eye with the blade. The soldiers panicked and fired their crossbows, but No Name dodged their attack, throwing the dagger at one soldier's face and slashing another with his sword. The remaining 4 soldiers ran away in terror. No Name then turned his attention to the hobgoblin, cutting through its ropes, wondering if it was still alive. But before he could check, the strange small man lassoed him and pulled him up with a pulley. After some argument, No Name revealed that he'd been requested to return the dungeon to normal. The small man cut him down, revealing himself to be a goblin, and went to his tied-up kin, telling No Name to leave since he would handle the situation. As the hobgoblin was untied, a blue window popped up, naming him as Insukase's Bumtong, the dungeon boss. Outside the dungeon, 2 fleeing soldiers were intercepted by a man in a red cape and a snake tattoo, who inquired about their fearful words. Back inside, No Name watched the hobgoblin and wondered about its apparent weakness. The dungeon boss fled in fear, chased by the small goblin, who called him Daddy and promised to heal him. The skeleton found it odd that a hobgoblin could be defeated by human soldiers, but the goblin child explained their peaceful nature and how they'd been trapped and enslaved by the humans. Despite No Name's curiosity about the dungeon's ranking, the child insisted it was their home and told him to leave. Just as No Name was about to depart, a bomb rolled towards him, exploding and throwing him back. The hobgoblin ran away in fear as the supervisor, Daryl LaRoche Nim, approached with 3 soldiers. He demanded to know why No Name had impersonated him and pulled out a small crossbow. Before he could fire, the goblin child dashed forward, slashing his wrist. The man berated him as a slave, fired his crossbow, but missed. The child knocked the weapon from his hand and jumped, dagger in hand, to deliver a killing blow. Tragically, he was struck by a crossbow bolt and fell back, mortally wounded. His father, the hobgoblin, screamed in horror and rushed to his son, while the supervisor mockingly prepared to finish him off with his crossbow. The scene was filled with tension, uncertainty, and grief. Just as the supervisor was about to fire his weapon, the enraged hobgoblin acted swiftly. With glowing red eyes, he knocked the weapon from the man's hand, thrust his fist through his chest, and hoisted him into the air. He threw the lifeless body at the soldier's feet. The dungeon boss, now furious and bloodied, let out a deafening roar. His muscles strained against the bandages covering his wounds as the soldiers scattered in terror. No Name, watching from the ground, was alerted by a blue window that the hobgoblin's mad enchantment had activated. This enchantment revealed him as a hidden dungeon boss, boosting his stats, driven by anger, despite being usually non-violent. A hidden quest to pacify the hobgoblin also appeared. The hobgoblin turned his attention to No Name, striking fiercely, but No Name deflected his blows with his sword. He admired the hobgoblin's strength but used his superior skills to strike him from behind, sending him flying across the room. He then choked the hobgoblin into unconsciousness. Standing over the dungeon boss, No Name contemplated whether to kill the creature. He looked around and saw the worried goblins gathering, including the hobgoblin's son. The creature then stirred, regained his senses, and embraced his son. A blue window informed No Name that he'd completed the hidden quest, earning him 200 allegiance from the hobgoblin and a 70-point rise in reputation with the blood-red goblin tribe. It also mentioned that the assimilation ratio had decreased to 88.3%, leading No Name to ponder its meaning. His thoughts were interrupted by the hobgoblin thanking him and offering to repay his kindness, which No Name declined. The hobgoblin then asked for No Name's name, but No Name simply warned the goblins to hide deeper, forewarning them of an impending human war. He also pondered about the Necron Society tattoo and whether his friend Arena could get more information. Upon exiting the dungeon, No Name took an ID card and a purse of gold from the dead supervisor. The hobgoblin ran after him, offering to repay him by sharing the secret of the unique goblin mage, Mud Cash. Fascinated by gold coins, Mud Cash had hoarded them his whole life and even created a magical coin purse that could hold an infinite number. The hobgoblin explained that Mud Cash resided in the eastern mountains and that No Name could find him by shouting a secret code that meant, "Do you like money? I do." Back at the TNT orphanage, No Name shared his adventures with Slime, who thanked him and offered to repair his armor. They discussed the magic snake tattoo, a spell that could strangle its wearer, and the headmaster hinted at possibly knowing who might have cast it. Slime then informed No Name that he might have to leave for guild business and that Rena had news for him. Later that night, an unarmored No Name gazed at the night sky when Rena surprised him. He noticed her bruised face and they talked about her promotion. Rena then made a surprising proposal to run away together. No Name refused, reminding her of their agreement. She sighed, admitting the test wasn't over yet, and revealed that she had to bring him to a specific location. She hinted that they knew about No Name's true nature, leaving the situation fraught with tension and uncertainty. No Name absorbed Rena's ominous request, noticing her unease and the fear in her eyes. She begged him, her voice trembling, to just run away with her, saying that the guilt wasn't essential. But he cut her off, his voice firm. He explained that the information was crucial to him, and Rena's promotion was a means to obtain it. He was also intent on clearing the scenario, a thought he kept to himself. Rena looked at him, her eyes filled with a mix of confusion and understanding. She commented on how No Name seemed even more interested in getting into the guild than she was. Her lips curved into a weary smile as she agreed to leave at dawn. They rode a cart in silence, each lost in thought as they headed for their destination. As night fell, they arrived close to a ruined arena marked by an altar at its center, surrounded by dark caverns. While they waited, No Name examined the structures closely, particularly the altar. The clouds parted, and he was taken aback to recognize symbols on the altar, symbols of the Demon King's mark. Memories from his days as a skeleton soldier rushed back to him. He remembered the Demon King of Thunder, a mighty figure donning a lion's head, commanding his army with a trumpet, riding a gigantic black bear. In a flash, No Name understood that the TNT Guild worshipped a Demon King, and the snake symbol of the Necron Society was the Demon King Duke Bodis's mark. A chill ran down his spine as he realized that though it was 10 years too early for the descent, the Demon King still had an influence over this world. Suddenly, several robed figures emerged from the rocky caverns in the arena. Among them was an old man with a turban and staff who introduced himself as Patrick Azar, a mage and the third-ranking director of the TNT National Headquarters. He presented the others as TNT executives who all shared the belief in reducing the human population. No Name's shock was palpable as he demanded to know why he was summoned. Patrick calmly explained that they had studied both his and Rena's pasts, impressed by his strength and accomplishments since rising from his grave. The mage shared his vision of a new world, citing the cruel treatment of non-human species by humans. With a dramatic flourish, Patrick removed his turban, revealing himself as a member of the Deer People, hunted by humans for their horns and medicine. His voice filled with passion, he spoke of a great war, the blood of which must be offered to their king, so he could cleanse the world of humans. No Name identified their king as the Demon King, much to Patrick's delight. The mage went on to explain the preparations for a ritual to summon their king to end mankind. No Name, surprised but composed, questioned Patrick about their involvement in the war. The mage explained that the war was not their doing, but they planned to increase the casualties, manipulating the hero and causing the Empire and Alliance to despise each other. No Name's mind raced, aware that their plans would only partially succeed. Their gods would descend upon the world, slaughter mankind for a decade, and then be slain. He wondered how the followers would feel seeing their gods die. He later questioned Patrick about the Empire's first strike, leading to the revelation that the city of Amber, where the TNT headquarters were located, had failed to prevent the war despite brutal attempts. When No Name asked if the TNT had blocked the peace attempts, Patrick laughed uncontrollably at the absurdity of the statement. He clarified that war was inevitable, and they were merely going with the flow. He extended an invitation to Rena and No Name to join them, promising power. When No Name inquired if he meant power within the TNT, Patrick explained that it included that, but he meant something much more, actual power. The weight of Patrick's words hung heavily in the air, leaving No Name and Rena to ponder their next move, with the true nature of the TNT Guild and its sinister plans laid bare before them. The hooded figures began to move, and the air around them seemed to buzz with an unnatural energy. Patrick removed his staff and started to summon ancient powers. No Name's eyes widened as the figures started to transform into various monsters, each one more terrifying than the last. Rena's shock was evident in her eyes. Patrick's antlers began to grow, his body morphing into a gigantic deer. Many other followers also revealed their true forms, converging menacingly on No Name. Staring at the creatures before him, No Name recognized the threat they posed. Though far below in the chain of command, they were still capable of harming him. Suddenly, Patrick halted the transformation, lightning crackling around him, splitting the ground. No Name felt an enormous pressure, only a fraction of what must have been the true extent of Patrick's power. The deer man then offered this power to the skeleton, enticing him with its potential. What would it cost? No Name asked, his voice betraying no fear. Patrick explained that once a seal was carved onto No Name's body, this vast power would flow through him. All he would have to do was perform a ritual sacrifice every full moon. No Name glanced at the human followers among the crowd and learned that they were regular humans filled with hatred towards mankind, some even apologetic to the monsters. No Name's mind wandered back to the descent of the Demon Kings, recalling that 1 in 10 or 20 humans had joined the monster army. Some went with the flow, some had no choice, and a few harbored real hatred towards humanity. "Will you take the seal?" Patrick asked, promising a righteous world of balance. No Name calmly refused, stating he would not devote himself to a king destined to fail. A harpy screeched in anger, calling his words blasphemy. Inside, No Name knew he was weak and that the power offered was tempting, but he feared the demands that would follow. He could not be a slave. The harpy's impatience grew, and No Name turned to Rena, asking her thoughts. She quickly declared that nothing mattered as long as they were together. Patrick's surprise was palpable, but No Name reaffirmed his stance. The furious harpy, baring her talons, prepared to strike. "Stop!" Rena yelled, revealing her pack filled with Imperial Army flares. The room froze, everyone's attention fixed on Rena, as she warned that the flares would draw unwanted attention. Patrick commanded everyone to stand down, and a tense conversation ensued. A werewolf named Brody Baldoff challenged Rena's threat, but was silenced by Patrick's authority. As negotiations continued, No Name announced their departure, but Patrick's antlers charged with magic, paralyzing them. Declaring that he must kill them since they knew too much, Patrick offered a final chance to join. No Name said, asking questions about the Necron Society and their connections. Patrick revealed some truths but held back others, insisting they must join or die. Just then, the flares in Rena's bag ignited, startling everyone. A blindfolded woman whispered in Patrick's ear, and chaos erupted. As the followers scattered, the blindfolded woman, revealed to be the headmaster of the TNT orphanage, stayed with the paralyzed pair. Her hand turned into slime as she touched Rena's face, her mismatched eyes filled with regret. As she began to consume them, No Name pleaded with her, reminding her that children would die if war broke out. But the headmaster's resolve was firm: humans must be exterminated. "No other choice," she whispered, her voice filled with sadness. As darkness began to descend, No Name's last sight was Rena's face beginning to melt, a horrifying image that would haunt him forever. No Name finds himself waking up once again in the charnel house, with Rena resting her head on his lap. He's lost in thought, reflecting on the extensive life he's just lived and the assistance he received from the TNT Guild. An awareness settles in that he can't turn to them now. His thoughts turn to Arena's death, a fate he deeply regrets causing. A blue window appears before his eyes, confirming that his inheritance is complete and revealing that he's gained a new bonus: corrosive resistance. This is the outcome of his 7th death, and his resistance to acid has increased. The Necromancer's Lover bonus has also been selected automatically. With a heavy heart, the skeleton decides that in this life, he'll have to be alone. He looks down at Rena and notices that her stats have changed since the last time, and his assimilation rate has dropped to 87.75%. Rena stirs and wakes up, mentioning a strange dream she had. She hands No Name her pendant, identifying it as a token of trust. Despite accepting it, No Name tells her they must go their separate ways. He advises her not to stay in the charnel house for longer than a month. When Rena asks where they'll meet again, No Name stands up, saying they won't. He apologizes and urges her to live her life freely as he leaves the dungeon. Now alone, No Name starts to consider his next destination. The vacant, arid underground cemetery dungeon comes to mind, and he heads that way. As he's approaching the dungeon, he's forced to hide when he spots soldiers on the road. Before he can decide what to do, the men stop and approach a katana-wielding swordsman, demanding his identity. The swordsman, undaunted, mocks the soldiers and declares himself the spy they are seeking. When they charge at him, he effortlessly cuts off their spear tips and reveals himself to be Chandler Namjok, the young lord of Grasmere. The soldiers apologize, and he sends them to his castle to fetch his weapon, using his seal as proof. No Name, concealed in a nearby bush, observes the situation. Just as he's about to leave, he hears a voice greeting him, and everything fades to black. A blue window informs him that his understanding of skeletons from his previous life has reached rank EX. When he wakes up again, he finds himself in a dreamlike state, under a powerful enchantment. His stats are reduced, and he's forced to fight other skeletons in a surreal battle. His level 5 sword mastery activates, and he defeats an orc skeleton with 70% effectiveness. After selecting weapons from an assortment provided by a mysterious observer, he faces 3 orc skeletons. Despite his efforts, he's subdued and wonders why they don't just kill him. A woman's voice interrogates him, and he realizes he's being controlled by a powerful being. The voice mentions Rubia, enraging No Name. It taunts him with cryptic analogies and threatens to break and reassemble him. When he questions why he's here, the voice claims to want a friendly chat while waiting for someone. They discussed his resurrection, and the woman in red robes appears, startling No Name. He's filled with frustration, realizing that despite his many lies, he's failed to protect or rescue anyone, and now he's being toyed with. The mysterious part skeleton woman looks at him, her intent unknown, as the voice tells him that she's finished examining him and wants to hear his story. No Name's mind is filled with questions, uncertainty, and a lingering sense of anger as he stares back at her. If you enjoyed this video and want to see the next part of No Name's story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And don't forget to leave a comment down below with the word skeleton if you're as eager as we are to unravel the mysteries of this unique world. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more exciting content.